This 2021 meeting of the Dayton Microcomputer Association Incorporated. The DMA is a 45-year-old 501c3 nonprofit organization. Specifically, the DMA is an all-volunteer computer user group. My name is Peter Hess. I'm the Vice President and Program Chair of the Dayton Microcomputer Association. Following in the long traditions of computer user groups throughout the world, the DMA often talks about the advantages, benefits, and rewards of both computer software and hardware products. We also address what we feel are the possible shortcomings of those same products. Years ago, mostly software publishers used to provide their products as presents, as gifts, to user group members in exchange for honest, forthright assessments of their products. User groups don't routinely get software from these organizations anymore because, frankly, they didn't get the expected critiques of their software as much as they wanted. Even after those reviews were published in user group newsletters. So they were happy to receive the critique as a clipping from a user group newsletter. The DMA, and specifically its members, as well as our featured presenter, who is also a DMA member, follows the user group credo, users helping users. Tonight, we will talk about the newly released product, Amazon Sidewalk. If anyone from Amazon views this presentation, hopefully they will find this assessment of their product helpful in ways that this meeting will lead to an improvement of their product. More about that in a few minutes, but right now, especially since we have more than the typical DMA general meeting attendance, I would like to talk about ways our meetings go more smoothly. If you have a question, please either raise your hand via the Zoom tool found at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or ask your question via Zoom's chat feature. Also assessed at the recording of your Zoom screen, I will answer the raised hands in the proper order, and one of us will address the questions asked via Zoom chat. By the way, for anybody's interest, as you raise your hand, it puts automatically in order in the list of participants, the Zoom participants. I will answer the raised hands in the proper order, and one of us will address the questions asked via the Zoom chat. We may combine multiple attendees' questions for improved clarity. Anyone sitting in front of the laptop at your in-person venue at TJ Chumps in Huber Heights will also be addressed in the proper order. We again have published our Zoom link as part of our meeting announcement, continuing our experiment designed to help make it easier to attract more meeting attendees and hopefully also members. Any disruptions in this meeting will be dealt with by one of our co-hosts. All of our meetings are free and open to the public. If you like what the DMA is doing, there are many growing ways in which you can help us do what we do. If you would like to become a DMA member, the fee is only $25 a year, and then there are even more ways we can help you and work with you. One way we can also help you is through our Brain Trust. At the end of this meeting, our Brain Trust participants will try to address your computer or software issues. Now, tonight's presenter, Gary Coy, has worked in the electronic and computer industries for over 20 years. While at the same time running a computer repair business, he has been a member of the Dayton Microcomputer Association for over 10 years, and where he has served as an officer and trustee of the DMA. He is currently the VP of the NASAC Computer User Group based in Clark County, Ohio. Gary currently works for the Speedway Corporation, where he started as a repair technician and is now a customer service claims specialist. He also serves his community as a volunteer and part-time EMT. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to tonight's presenter, Gary Coy.
You're okay. On good. All right, thanks. Hey guys, just a couple of things. Can everybody hear me? Okay. All right. So just a couple of kind of warnings. I am running this on a Windows 11 PC with beta version. So hopefully we won't have any issues with that. So far, so good, nothing. And speaking of being a volunteer part-time EMT, I'm currently sitting at my station because it's a lot quieter here than my house because I have several animals. But just in case, if you start hearing a bunch of noises and sirens and stuff in the background, I apologize. I just want to let you know that ahead of time. All right, so let's go ahead and get this started. So a couple of things. I did this presentation for the NASAC group that I belong to, and a couple of questions came up during the description of how Amazon works, the Amazon Sidewalk. And the question came up of how a mesh network works. And since they kind of tied together, I'm going to do a little bit of a presentation on that so you can understand the concept of a mesh network and with the Amazon Sidewalk. So let me go ahead and share the screen here. All right, so to get started, somebody had mentioned before that Microsoft originally had something called Microsoft Sidewalk or sidewalk.com. And that was started in 1995. Uh-oh, I lost Zoom. Nope, I'm still there. So that was started in 1995, and then of course Microsoft bought it and in 1996, and basically it was like a search engine to help people find entertainment in restaurants and everything of that kind of nature in different cities. Then they sold the project to City Search, and now City Search is calling it right here, right now. I just thought I'd throw that out there because I know we used a Microsoft quote in the data bus. So I just wanted to throw that out there so nobody is confused. And I'm not talking about the Microsoft Sidewalk. I'm going to be talking about the Amazon Sidewalk. All right, so what is a Wi-Fi or a mesh network? Okay, so with the mesh network, it's a lot of people call it the whole home Wi-Fi, and basically you have one router and then a bunch of nodes or modules, and you can use these modules or nodes and place them around your house. And yes, they do even have them outside. You see over here, they got one on a tree. Yes, they do sell, some companies do sell nodes that you can place outside your home. And basically the way it's set up is all the nodes share the same SSID and password. So as you're walking through your house, your phone or whatever will just go to the next node and give you the best signal. And it basically it's a wireless network within your home. And instead of being a repeater, everybody knows when you use an amplifier or something, if you have a weak signal and it's got a lot of noise, you're going to amplify not just the signal, but you're going to amplify some of that noise too. And so this kind of prevents that kind of stuff, and it helps with the interference and things like that. So this gentleman here can give a little bit of a better idea of how it works.
What we want in a good, solid network is probably a good, solid network. Whether it's wired or wireless, we just want that puppy to work when we're trying to use it. In this video, I'd like to share with you some advancements that have happened in the world of Wi-Fi, including mesh Wi-Fi networks that can help us improve the foundation and the reliability of wireless networks and get rid of a lot of those dead spots. So let's take a look at the big picture. We have some internet connectivity coming in from a service provider, the person providing this internet service. That might be a cable provider with a cable modem, or it could be a telephony company with a DSL device. Either way, from that device, it's going to come from an Ethernet cable to our router. Now, a lot of routers these days have the access point, the wireless piece built in, and the routing function, which is the case with this Airport Extreme, one of my favorite routers. I've had a lot of high-end routers for small office, home office, and the Airport Extreme is one of my favorites. Apple has discontinued them. Anyway, the connection would come in, it would go into the WAN port on this bad boy, which is right here, and this has some built-in Ethernet ports that could go off to other devices, and this device is acting as an access point, which is a fancy way of saying the device that sends and receives radio frequency. Now, imagine if this device is in the not basement, but like the downstairs. It's a 2 or 3 story home, and it's downstairs in the bottom room where the cable's coming in. Imagine this is a speaker, like an audio speaker, and sending signals. If we're really close to it, we can hear it, listening to our favorite music. It's great. However, the further we get away, the weaker and weaker that signal, that audio signal, is going to be in this example. And also, if we go upstairs, the signal going through the floor and at angles, it just gets beat up and weaker. They call that attenuation, a weaker and weaker signal. So eventually, if somebody is far enough away, like 3 stories up in a far room, there may not be enough signal for them to even hear if these are speakers. Well, the same kind of concept works with an access point, a wireless access point sending radio frequency for Wi-Fi. So the challenge is, how do we get no dead spots? And one option we used to use, and a lot of people still do, was they get some kind of extender or repeater. Now, what this is an Airport Extreme, this is an Airport Express. They're both Apple products. These are great. So we put this one near where the cable comes in, where the cable modem is, and this one we would put a few rooms further away. And what it would do, it would take the signals and it would repeat them. If you're a network person, sort of like a dumb hub, back in the days when we used hubs instead of switches. And they would then propagate that signal on and on. The more we have to repeat a signal, and the worse that signal is, the worse service we're going to have. Now, on top of all that, trying to get coverage for our home, on top of all that, it's very likely in most areas, we have a lot of other competition for those same frequencies of signals. We have the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum range of frequencies, and there's also the 5 gigahertz range of frequencies. And a lot of people, if they live in close proximity to each other, as I do in this unit right here, there's a lot of competition. So between competing for signals with our neighbors and also having walls and floors to go through and repeaters that have weak signals, there's lots of opportunity for dead spots and for loss of internet connectivity when we're using Wi-Fi. So to the rescue, we have this newer solution called mesh Wi-Fi. Let's take a look at how it works. So when implementing a mesh network, instead of just having one device acting as an access point, we're going to have a team. And when you see mesh, think of a team of access points, of wireless devices that are sending and receiving signals for the benefit of the people in the house. So our connection from the internet still comes in at the same place right here. And so we can have access point 1. So this device, access point 1, is the wireless device and it's acting as a router. But in addition, we could put an access point up here on the 3rd floor. We'll call that access point 2. And we can put another one here on the 2nd floor. We'll call that access point 3. Now what these 3 devices are doing in the background is they are having a party, and they are going to communicate back and forth using radio frequency and be able to send information back and forth very, very quickly. And the term full mesh implies that every device is connected to every other device. So if we have 3 access points and they're all connected to each other, that's an example of a full mesh. Now the benefit of this is we have users like Bob, who's upstairs and he's connecting to the wireless network. Bob is going to connect to its closest AP, which is AP2. And if Lois is downstairs, she could connect to AP1 or AP3, depending on which is the preferable one signal-wise. And her computer or her mobile device will sort that out with the access point. For this discussion, let's imagine she connects to access point 3. So Bob is solid with access point 2, Lois is solid with access point 3, And then these access points will forward that traffic over to the router, in this case access point 1, so that Lois can get to the internet. And the cool thing is, it's super solid as far as connectivity wise with Wi-Fi, and it's transparent to the users. They don't know. This is all just one Wi-Fi network to them. And one of the great things about most of these Wi-Fi solutions for small office, home offices, is that they are a breeze to set up, and the intelligence for the communications and all the background activity happens transparent to the user. So that Bob and Lois and any other user that just wants to use the network gets solid as a rock connectivity and doesn't have to worry about it. Another way of looking at this, if we were comparing this to a traditional local area network, is if we had switches. With switch 1, 2, and 3, and they all have interconnections between them. And then one of these devices is also connected to a router, which is then connected to the internet. It's the same logic here, except super easy to set up with just a few clicks inside of an app, and it's all set up and ready to go. And for those of you who have worked with some switches before and maybe wondering, well, if this is a switched environment, how do we prevent a loop? Meaning Lois sends traffic into access point 3, and that traffic goes to access point 1 and forwards to access point 2 and back to access point 3 and just loops and loops and loops and loops forever. That wouldn't be good. And the answer to that question is that in a mesh Wi-Fi network, they use STP, Spanning Tree Protocol. Now, the great news is that all those details are handled behind the scenes by Wi-Fi applications that support mesh, including from Google and Samsung and Ubiquiti's Amplify products. But the bottom line is that mesh Wi-Fi networks are absolutely awesome to give us that foundation that can support anywhere in the house with no dead spots. So thanks for joining me in this video. Click on subscribe so you can be aware of when the new ones come out regarding implementing Google Wi-Fi and Ubiquiti solutions and others, and I'll see you in those videos.
Okay. All right. So that gives you a basic idea. And for those that understand it, I picked that particular video because it seemed to have a pretty basic explanation along with those that like to get real technical. So most mesh networks right now come in a couple of different flavors. And basically you got Wi-Fi 5, which will be the cheaper ones right now. And then you have Wi-Fi 6, which is the latest and greatest. Now within those different type of routers, I haven't seen too many of, with the Wi-Fi 5, you can get a dual band or a tri-band system. And so far the Wi-Fi 6s that I've seen, pretty much all of those have been tri-band. Now, when you have a dual band, you have the 2.4 gigahertz and you have the 5 gigahertz. I'm over here waving my hands. I don't know if you guys can even see that. So you have the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz, just the two different channels with the dual band. And with the tri-band, you get a 2.4 gig and a 5 gig and another 5 gig. Now, with the tri-band ones, the second 5 gig channel is actually used for what they call the backhaul signal. And the backhaul signal is how all the nodes and the routers will actually speak to each other. So, and you don't have any chance of taking up bandwidth because your phones or computers or whatever are going to connect to the 2.4 or the other 5 gig. So you don't, you have more bandwidth to use. And of course, I mean, some of the newer Wi-Fi 6 routers are hitting 1 gig or higher, or not 1 gig. Yeah, they're able to exceed the 1 gig on the data transfer up and down. So one thing to consider when you are looking for a Wi-Fi mesh network, well, with any router, but especially with the Wi-Fi mesh network, you want to get something that exceeds whatever your internet connection coming into your house. For example, I have 400 from Spectrum coming in. So I made sure I got the router that can at least do, I believe it's 867, so that I can take full advantage and get the full 400 in. But sharing files in my house is just like being on a wired connection. And because everything talks to each other, it just, you're not dropping your signal. So I have the main router sits pretty much in the center of my house, and then my bedroom is an add-on. So I have a closet and an outside wall basically between all the devices in my bedroom. So I have a node in there, and then I don't have another node. The kit that I had only had 2, but I have an older, before they started calling it a mesh network, I have a Wi-Fi extender, they call it, which is like the precursor to mesh, but it's still a tri-band and it has that 5 gig backhaul. So, and I'm getting, on my Wi-Fi speeds, I'm still getting 400, and, then when I check my speeds in the house, I'm exceeding, 800. So that's a quick thing on the mesh network and how it works. So, let me start going into Sidewalk here. All right, so Amazon Sidewalk is now live. It's actually been out for a while. It actually started last year. However, any of the devices that are capable of running the Sidewalk went live on June 8th of this year. Now, for those that have some of these devices, like the Echo Dot, and let me scroll down here. Should have a list on this one, I believe. There we go. So any of these devices here, the Amazon Echoes from 2019, 3rd generation, the Echo Dot with clock, 1st gens. Seems like a lot of devices, even going back, clear back to 2017, 2018 in some cases. If you're keeping up on updating your firmware and stuff, on June 8th, this stuff went live. Whether you wanted it to or not, it went live. So if you're running any of these devices, one of the things I'm going to show is how to turn that off if you don't want to run Amazon Sidewalk, because you don't want to share it. So basically, one of the good things is some of these devices have 900 megahertz radios in them that will allow them to talk to each other. And so they're already talking to the system. They're already talking to each other. I mean, you got from half a mile away, they can connect with devices. So you're, like the, let's see, yeah. So those are on mainly the new devices that they list there. And a lot of them use the Bluetooth as well. So what exactly is Sidewalk? Sidewalk keeps other people's devices near your home connected by passing their signals through your Echo and Ring devices. So essentially, if it's a big mesh network, this is exactly what it is. That's why I did the presentation on the mesh network there, to give you an idea of what that is. So say, I can use an example of my life. Back when my kids were young, we had a transformer blow up in my neighborhood, and it took out 2 houses, and it took out a trunk line going into a restaurant. So basically they lost their freezer and stuff. So guess whose house was one of those 2 affected? Mine. So if at that time I had a network with the cameras, the Ring devices and all that, all that would be down. However, some of these devices do have batteries in them. So, for example, with the Amazon Sidewalk, those devices that were still up and running would go looking, oh, hey, my neighbor over here has the Amazon Sidewalk turned on, so I'm going to take part of their bandwidth so I can still transmit data when you look it up online. And they basically talk through either Bluetooth or the 900 megahertz signals. So, like any big company, they're saying, you know, everybody's suddenly saying, well, does that mean somebody can hack into my network? Is it private and secure? Well, according to Amazon, it is secure and they use 3 layers. But as we know, nothing's 100% foolproof. Another thing that they bring up is they do cap the transmissions. So if you have, say you're using a Wi-Fi hotspot in your house, it will cap the usage and the data so that, you know, you don't have to worry about it taking too much of your chunk away, but you still might want to consider turning that off because, you know, if you have limited data issues, that could be a problem for you. All right, and they're talking about here like the satellite and stuff like that. Most people are saying give it a shot. It's worth trying out. And a lot of devices that will actually benefit from something like this is if you use the tiles. For those that don't know, the tiles are the little things that you can put on your keychain or, you know, on your dog collar. And if something gets lost, you can track it. I know a lot of people, I ride scooters and motorcycles. A lot of people are hiding these devices on their 2-wheeled vehicles. So if somebody steals it, they could maybe get it back. So that's one good thing about Sidewalk is it opens up that network so that these devices can connect and ping a lot easier. Whereas before it was a little more difficult. And as I said, it's already on by default. So you might want to go in and turn it off. All right. All right, so here's how to turn it off. If you got your pen and paper ready, and you can Google this. So to turn Sidewalk off or to turn community finding on, like for your tiles, you open up the Alexa app, tap the more icon at the bottom right, then tap settings, account settings, Amazon Sidewalk, and then just turn it off or on. All right, I should have a video here. Oh, wait a minute, that's the wrong one.
You're likely part of a star-shaped topology.
Sorry, that was another one, different one, sorry. So Consumer Reports has the pros and cons that they talk about here.
Gary, can you field a question?
Sure.
Catherine Devlin has a question. Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, maybe I should.
I'm not hearing you, but when I did, you were very echoey.
Try speaking. Okay. Half a mile seems so much longer than I've got a range extender in my house. It doesn't get anywhere near that far. Is there some is there some trick to that? I don't follow how it gets that kind of range.
My guess would be it's probably line of sight. It probably would not get half a mile if you had half a dozen houses between you and the next house that has the capability. But if you lived out in the middle of the country, it very well could. I mean, I'm just going by what they said. 900 megahertz at such a low frequency. I mean, if you remember back in the day, some of the cordless phones with the 900 megahertz, I mean, I could walk out to,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So as the Sidewalk actually launched last year, and but they didn't go live until June 8th, of course. All right. So the wide-ranging internet connection that Amazon Sidewalk aims to offer could make it easier to, say, find a loved one with dementia if they're wearing a care band tracker when they gone missing, because it's more likely there will be internet service so that the tracker can send a signal to alert you to the person whereabouts. So think about that. If you have a loved one that's in the early stages of dementia and they choose to stay home, or you keep them home for whatever reason you need to, but they can't afford to pay for internet service, with something like this Sidewalk set up, as long as they have somebody within that range that has the Sidewalk capabilities, you'll be able to track that loved one and not have to have an internet connection. So that's something to think about with one of the good things that Sidewalk can do. And that's why they're automatically turning it on, of course, without telling you, because they want to be able to use that as a selling point, of course. And of course, like it says here, Amazon doesn't think that people would turn it on because a lot of people might not understand that it does have some security and protection behind it, but most of us know that how long is that good for? Let's see. So you've got your Ring, all the devices that you got your Care Band wearables, the level smart locks, Ring outdoor smart lights, the motion cameras, the mailbox sensors. Didn't know they had a mailbox sensor. That'll tell you when you get mail, the tile trackers, yeah, the Ring and products and level already work. All right, so here's a little bit more. Yeah, so the Bluetooth network works within a couple of hundred of feet, which would be excellent if, like I said, if you have family members that live close to in an apartment building or something, and the neighbor has a Ring doorbell, then they'll be able to connect via Bluetooth, so you don't have to worry about the 900 megahertz. And then they're saying here with up to half a mile away, but my guess, like I said, that would be half a mile line of sight. So I wouldn't count on that if you live in town to get that kind of range.
One thing I noticed, I do have an Echo or an Amazon Kindle, and when I'm doing my audiobooks, I can be in a long ways away, so I do understand sort of what's going on here. But as the power gets down near under 10%, it starts getting a little weird. So obviously, if there's low power, that might affect it.
Yeah, it'll probably throttle it back, because I know that's what like my laptops and stuff will do, is when the power starts getting low, it'll start throttling things back so you can keep your device on longer. One of the things that people were concerned about was would people be able to see your device? Because you are on a mesh network. And for example, I use the Netgear Orbi, and it will tell me of nodes. I can run a scan, and if there are any nodes that are in the area, it'll see them, but I will have to set it up to connect to that node. So one of the concern is it'll give an approximate location. See, told you that kind of stuff would happen. Anyways, so it won't give an approximate. It's kind of like when you watch TV and they're trying to approximate somebody, triangulate a cell tower. They'll say like, well, they're within a half a mile of so-and-so tower. This is kind of the same thing. It won't give an approximate, except for with the tile trackers and the pet trackers and the care band wearables, because naturally you want to be able to pinpoint those. So, and like I said, you can turn it off in the Amazon Alexa, in the Ring apps. And the last one we talked about was through the Alexa app. And in the Ring app, you would go into the control center, Amazon Sidewalk, and turn off the community finding there. And then the privacy and security. Tile trackers, ring sensors, and other devices might be traveling through your home's Wi-Fi router and modem. And those are to guard your home networks. You know, you got to guard your home networks, and those to help, you know, protect your home and your stuff. Amazon did release a white paper, and Sidewalk uses 3 layers of encryption to ensure that data can be seen only by the device itself and the server to which it's sending data. Sidewalk devices can't not see any data about Echo or Ring devices they connect to, including any data about its owner and vice versa. The only exception is if you own both the Sidewalk device and the Echo or Ring device. So basically, your neighbor will not be able to access your camera. They won't even know. There's a good chance that they won't even know that you're on there. And if they do know how to get in and see it, they'll just know that the device is connected. They might not necessarily exactly know where it is. And unless that is in, you know, you share it. Like I know some people share, you know, might have a camera set up at their neighbor's house or something, you know, they can something that way. Consumer Reports did do us testing on it, and they said it's pretty secure. And then, yeah, they don't see any problems or security concerns based on the information. However, introducing a new form of communication between devices inevitability opens up new ways for hackers to attack these devices, which we've already talked about.
We have a question, I believe, from somebody at TJ Chumps. Gary?
Yeah, I got a question for you. One Amazon device that I was wondering about is a Kindle. Does a Kindle link to it?
No, Kindle is not on that list. We're mainly talking about any like the Ring doorbells, the cameras, the Ring cameras, the tile trackers, the care bands, your Echoes, those kind of things. Because, you know, you got to be able to order your shampoo through Alexa if, you know, your internet goes down.
Well, so that's the nice part about the Kindle I have is that it connects to an Echo Dot. See, and that's how I'm connecting via the Echo Dot, not via, you know, the Kindle itself doesn't have the range. But I'll tell you one thing: it's like when I'm running my audio books,
Uh-huh.
It doesn't matter where that where that Kindle is in the house, it's picked up.
Is the Kindle connecting via Bluetooth?
Correct. So
Okay.
the Bluetooth range is astronomical, basically.
Right. Yeah. It can be a lot better than Wi-Fi, especially on an older Kindle device. I can understand that completely.
Well, this is they're both fairly new. I mean, they're both in the last couple of years.
Okay. Yeah, because I know the older ones used to work on a 2.4. Are the new ones at 5 now? Can they do the 5?
I don't know. It's pretty fast.
Okay.
So I would think so. I'd have to get it open, look at it.
So good news with the Amazon Sidewalk. If you want to try it out and it just ain't your kind of thing, or you're worried that the neighbors are going to be in a hack into your system, you can always go in and turn it off. Or if you want to, you read up on it enough, because we all know that things change, and it gets better. You can go in and turn it back on. So this was kind of short and sweet, because it's there's just not whole lot out about it that Amazon is sharing as far as all the nuts and bolts behind it. Here's another list of some of the devices: Amazon Echo, Echo Dot, Echo Show. For those that don't know, the Echo Show is basically an Echo Dot with a video screen. The Ring floodlight cam, and the spotlight cam mount, and the cam wired, the Doorbell Pro, and the Doorbell Pro 2. I don't know which ones of I think one of those cameras runs on a battery. I know the Ring video doorbells, a majority of those that people buy are battery capable. And I do know you can buy a hardwired one, but most of them are battery powered. So Sidewalk could be very advantageous if you do lose power in your house. You can still connect, and through Sidewalk, you can connect to see if you get that package or if somebody's trying to break into your house. So that's a good advantage there for that. So that's pretty much all I have on Amazon Sidewalk and mesh networks. Anybody have any other questions right now?
Just a comment, Hedy Lamarr, the actress, had quite a bit to do with developing or inspiring those who later developed Wi-Fi networks. And of course, that leads to the mesh network that you also talked about. We have a couple questions. Catherine Devlin is heading to the...
Yes. Okay. So can I monitor what I am sharing and what I'm receiving? I'd be deathly curious to see, like, what am I, what effect is this having? I'm way out in the country and I have no idea if anyone is even in range to make it effective.
The way I'm reading it so far, most people are not going to know if somebody's connected to their network. And if you have it turned on, you can pretty much expect that somebody's going to connect to your network if they're within range, and vice versa. So it's not, as far as monitoring it, I have not seen anything saying that you can go in and see if somebody's connected to your system, because mainly you're going to be using the Alexa app and the Ring app. Yeah, you're going to pretty much expect somebody's going to be connected, or you're going to be connected if the opportunity arises.
Can I throw in a second one while I'm here?
Sure.
So if I understand right, we've got a house and a barn that's about 75 yards away. So if I got 2 dots and put one in the house and one in the barn, would I, presumably would they mesh and start to give me some coverage in the barn?
If the dots can connect, probably.
If they would.
If the dots probably could connect to each other.
if they see each other. But I would highly recommend that you would look into getting you a mesh network.
Okay.
Yeah, the mesh network would probably be a better option in your case, because of just how connecting everything. It's, you're going to get the same speeds as you would running a line out to your barn, running a network. And if you put one of the, depending on how many nodes you get, most packages come with 2 or 3. So you always want to put your router, the main router, in the center of your house. And then depending on where you place your nodes, you can extend that out. Now, with my nodes, I can go out to my garage, and now my garage ain't 75 yards away. It's probably about 50 feet, 100 feet from the extender, and I can still get pretty much a full signal even with the garage door shut. So if you put a node, if you position your nodes correctly, you'll probably get a decent signal out there.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question. Question from Kathleen.
Yes, Kathleen.
Hey, Gary, I
Hello.
have really slow internet here in downtown Springfield because we're on a really weird little AT&T line. And so I really do not want people to use mine, and I'm on a main drag, so I would imagine a lot of people would be there, and there's an apartment building with 68 apartments across the street. So I bought a Ring doorbell, and at the same time got Echo Show 5. And when they said they were going to go live and force this sidewalk on us, I wanted to turn it off. So I, of course, have the app for the Ring doorbell on my cell phone, and it does not show an option for sidewalk. So I'm assuming it doesn't use sidewalk.
Well, it depends on how
show, yeah, it's not very old, but the Show 5 supposedly is, like, it was just on your list. And when I tried to figure out how to turn it off on that, it wouldn't show it on the screen itself. It sounded like I needed to install an app on my phone in order to turn it off. And I don't.
You're using it in a PC? Are you trying to do it through a PC?
No, I'm not using it connected to a phone. It's just the only reason I got it was to try to be able to monitor the doorbell, the Ring doorbell from upstairs, and be able to see people and talk to people at the door, which I never did get hooked up. So basically, I've unplugged the device and feel like I wasted my money because I don't want to have it connected to my cell phone.
No,
Why?
No, the only thing that it does with the app is it just allows you to talk to it via Bluetooth, is my guess.
But why can't, I mean, it has its own Alexa. It is Alexa. So why can't I turn it off on its own screen?
Probably because they didn't want to take up all the memory space on it. And if you put it on your phone, it just takes up the information. All the stuff is on your phone, where you probably have more space than the device does.
No.
That would be my
Okay, so we're forced to have the Alexa app on the cell phone
Yep.
in order turn Sidewalk off on the Echo.
Yep. Now, what you can always do is go in and see, install it on your phone, or you can even install it on a tablet. Install it on your phone, go in, turn it off, uninstall the Amazon app, and completely get rid of it, and then reinstall it and go back in again just to see if it stays off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering is if I uninstalled the app, would it void me having turned it off?
It
So
should-
yeah, that's a good way to tell.
Yeah, it should turn it off on your account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you.
that I'm not 100% sure that'll work, but it's worth a try.
Yeah.
I have to turn the Bluetooth off on my on the Kindle Fire for the Echo not to give me that extra range, and and to connect. As soon as I disconnect the Bluetooth or turn off the Bluetooth, I'm not connected. But the Bluetooth on the Echo Dot, I wouldn't know how to turn it off very easily, because it's only a single device, yet I can actually program on the Fire some of the audio commands that I'm able to give Alexa.
Yeah, because
So-
Alexa's built into the tablet.
into the tablet, and then it actually programs the Dot to do what you want it to.
Yeah, because a lot of that time when you have Alexa on your device, I'm pretty sure it ties everything into your account.
Yeah, I found that it's like once you program the Dot to do something, it'll do it even with this not being connected. So you shouldn't have a problem once you tell the Dot not to do something.
Right.
I'm not sure, but I would think that's the way it would work.
Well, thank you. I like I said, I'm not super familiar with using Alexa and stuff. I just did the research on the Amazon because we're considering we have a Ring doorbell now, so that's why I was doing my research on the Amazon Sidewalk, because I wanted to know if it's something that I wanted to risk. Because like Catherine, I live out in the country, so having that Ring doorbell, and my neighbors are actually within a half a mile of me, so I wouldn't have any problem probably connecting to them, because I know some of them have all that kind of stuff set up at their house, the Ring camera.
Well, I know some of those Ring cameras and audio devices had problems a while back. I think Amazon's done a lot to stem that, but will they be able to keep that stopped? Who knows?
Right. Well, like anything, just give it time and it'll get hacked. So
It's hard to stop criminals.
that's true. Where there's a will, unfortunately, there's a way.
Hopefully, our meeting will be heard by Amazon people, and they are invited to give their presentation and answer questions about security, further answer questions about security beyond what Gary has given us.
One question I do have
Sure.
is we call it your information you have like on doorbell, the videos and stuff. Is that stored on the cloud or is it stored locally?
Most of it's on the cloud. With the Ring doorbell service, you can stream live, but in order to store it, you have to pay a fee, and it is stored on the cloud because you can access it anywhere.
Because I was just wondering, because I was wondering if it would fill up somebody else's disk, or if your data would go to some on your disk and fill it up.
I do believe you can download it from the cloud. but if you pay the fee, it will be stored on the cloud.
If you don't have,
One thing, if you don't have a local storage device and somebody comes in with a Wi-Fi blocker, you're not going to get to the cloud. So I would have something stored local especially if you're out in the country trying to keep security, good, hide wherever your storage device is so that people can't easily find it.
And that brings up another point that I was just thinking about. Going back to the mesh network, the mesh network does allow you to connect a lot more devices to your network versus a standalone router because of the communication capabilities. I do believe, I'd have to look. Give me just a second here. Okay, so the system that I have is the RBK50. It's a Wi-Fi 5, and with the router and the satellite that I have, I can connect up to 250 devices. So that's one advantage of a mesh network.
How many would you be able to connect without the mesh? Compared
It depends on the router.
Yeah, just the router.
It depends on your router.
Well, okay, say current model medium grade.
Okay, let me look up the latest and greatest.
You say you do have a mesh network at your house?
I do, yes.
Now, how many wireless routers do you have?
I have one router and one node, and then I have an older what they call a Wi-Fi extender, which was basically a precursor to what was in between the repeaters and the mesh network. It works on almost the same technology, but it's not an actual mesh device.
Yeah, it's just extending your original router, giving your original router more power.
It goes back and forth on. It's a tri-band router,
Right.
or tri-band extender, so it uses the second channel as a backhaul. So instead of talking, two devices over the 5 gigahertz, if my phone connects to it, my phone connects to 5 gigahertz, but on the second one, the second 5 gigahertz talks strictly to my router. That's the only thing that's used on that channel. That's why it's better than a repeater. Let's see. Okay, so let's go with this one here. Now this is an AX6000 router.
Patrick, you got a question?
Actually, this one can do this Netgear can do 200 to 400 devices, but it's a high dollar, $500, $600 router, and it's Wi-Fi 6 too. It's not Wi-Fi 5.
Can we have ballpark on what a mesh network would cost, reasonably priced?
Anywhere from $100 to $200.
So it sounds like the least expensive way to go for the biggest bang for the buck would be a mesh network.
Yes. Wi-Fi 6s are starting to come down in price. And it is backwards compatible with Wi-Fi 5. So as far as phones go, most of the newer phones that are coming out, like the iPhone 12 and like my LG V60, they are Wi-Fi 6 compatible. And I have updated my 3rd generation Intel Dell laptop to a Wi-Fi 6 card. It cost me $25 with an adapter. And the speed is just phenomenal compared to Wi-Fi 5. Even on a Wi-Fi 5 network, it's still phenomenal.
Are the current models of mesh network all going to be Wi-Fi 6 or are they still 5?
You can still buy the 5s. If you're going to get the $100 to $200 range, you're going to get a Wi-Fi 5. And for most people, the Wi-Fi 5 will be perfectly fine. The Wi-Fi 6, you're going to start running into the $300 to up to $1,000 for a good system.
Of course, we expect that price to come down in time.
Right. And you'll get whereas, and it's AC, it's AX now. Whereas before it was AC, like the Wi-Fi 5 would be like an AC 1900. It's now AX. I think I've seen AX 2600, 3800, and some flavors all the way up to like 8,000 or something. And that Netgear router that I quoted is a AXE 11,000.
Mhm.
That's a gaming though. That's $600 just for one router. And a lot of the new routers that are coming out, the standalone routers, are mesh capable. So if you buy like a Netgear, a Netgear mesh node, you should be able to mesh to that router.
Cool.
Interesting. I just was looking this up and I see that we have a Wi-Fi 6 Eero 6. It's not called the Pro. It's at 129 dual band Wi-Fi 6 system designed for homes with 500 megabytes per second internet connection. And then you have a tri-band Wi-Fi 6. It's called the Eero Pro 6 for 229 tri-band Wi-Fi 6 system designed for homes with gigabyte internet connections.
Yeah, there you go. Eero is kind of the low end.
Is it?
Yeah, from what I understand, they're not bad, but they're kind of low end. They're like the low end of the brands, but they were one of the first ones to come out with the lower price like that Wi-Fi 6, and those are
on their Pro section, because I checked into that here too, and it has a 3-pack of the Eero Pro systems. Eero Pro 6 is a 3-pack for $599.
There you go, and that's 3 nodes. And what kind of square footage are they saying it'll cover?
So
hi, this is Bryant
6,000
McAfee.
square feet.
Hi, this is Bryant McAfee from Metronet, and I'm joining you guys just to listen in. And I was talking with Peter earlier, and he was wanting to know a little bit more about our service. So we are a gigabit fiber optic service that is launched in North Dayton, and soon to be, as of today, actually, we have activated households beginning in Huber Heights, and we will be expanding into Beaver Creek, Xenia, Sugar Creek Township, and Centerville. We are currently in Troy, Tip, Vandalia, Inglewood, Clayton, and West Milton and Union. We utilize the Eero 5 currently, and as of next Monday, we will be including the Eero 6 in all of our gigabit services. If we look at the Eero 6, that's about a 2,000 square foot range. The Eero 5 is about 1,750 for the Eero Pro, which is the 5. And, the biggest differences in that is both are tri-band, absolutely. Both can support as many of those devices as you want to put together. Our kind of rule of thumb is we look at the size of the home, and then we also look at how many floors are in the home, whether there's a garage, what kind of firewall there might be. Are they going to be using it on the exterior of the home? And that's how we decide how many combination of the extenders are needed. But you've got quite a bit of distance, and the biggest difference between the 6 and the 5 series is really the speed between the wireless network. The wireless network, you're looking at the Eero standard at about 350 megabits per second. On the Eero Pro, which is what you're considering the 5, that's about 600 megabits per second. And you go all the way up to 900 megabits per second whenever you get to the Eero Pro 6.
Brian, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry I didn't get to touch base with you. Has a decision been made about your presentation to DMA?
Not as of yet. I mean, I'm listening in tonight. I'm trying to see how I might craft that. I'm not sure I can take up an entire hour. That's for sure. I'm not a technical kind of person, but I am the regional manager overseeing all of our Ohio properties. So I can certainly share with you guys what our plans are as far as construction and development and what we can do. And I can even share with you a little bit about how our gigabit service reacts, because it is complete fiber to the premise.
When are you going to be in Springfield?
Well, we gotta connect first. We've just launched into Huber Heights, and if we look at it, we got to go contiguous. So, like I said, we are in Troy, Tip, Vandalia, Inglewood, Clayton, Union, West Milton. So now we're moving east. So first part is Beaver Creek, and we are going to be doing Xenia. So we're moving more into Greene County, and it probably realistically will be a year.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Now, my own question for, the MetroNet is about marketing, prices for bundles and things like that, so.
Yeah,
sure,
you can find out most of the information like that on the metronetinc.com website. And then if you put in your address, it'll tell you, what's available for your area.
I just didn't see any bundles and stuff.
Yeah, we don't bundle. You got to think of this. In today's environment, we're not a linear TV service. We're not a telephone service. Everything is run through the internet. So you're doing a lot of streaming, your voice over IP. So we don't really bundle. We want you to make that choice of who you want to use. Just like in my household, I don't have linear TV. I stream everything. So I have the perfect Chinese menu. If I want to subscribe to HBO, I subscribe to HBO. If I want to subscribe to ESPN or PGA Tour Online, I do that for ourselves. I've been in the telecommunication industry for about 35 years, and I've seen the gamut from when it was, everything was just 30 channels, 35 channels over coax, all the way up to, what we have today. And to be honest, most households do not use a bundled product these days. They make their choices because we all have cell phones. We all utilize the Wi-Fi for just about everything. So that's why we concentrate heavily on offering you much, much faster speeds than a bundle of services.
Yeah, well, one site you might be interested in is a site called buymetronet.com. BUY, metronet.com.
Okay.
It's the right to spectrum.
I see.
Is it, do you have anything down here in the Kettering area?
We will be moving that direction. As of yet, we are not there. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned, when we build out the main trunk of the fiber moving from head end to head end, we have to sort of do it in a clockwise fashion. We will be going throughout the Dayton Wreath, as I like to call it, first, and then moving inside.
Okay, I got you.
And I know that we had in our earlier conversations, the upstream and downstream speeds are the same.
Absolutely.
For
And that's
Metronet.
That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. That is the beauty of fiber. We don't have to worry about like cable providers or anybody else. We do not limit. So there's a couple of things. Same speed up and down. You have your choice of a variety of different internet speeds. We start at 100, 500, a gigabit service. By the time it gets to some of the locations you've asked about, we'll be at 5 gigabits per second. And again, that's same up and down. And the other part that we do is our service doesn't require any contracts. We're not going to beg you to stay with us if you don't like us. And the third thing I want to point out is there's no data cap. Stream as much as you want. We don't care.
Nice, nice. I think we have a question from somebody, TJ Chumps.
Yeah, this is Ken. Last time I checked, I didn't see support for IPv6 on Metronet.
You're probably above my head on that. I do not know the answer. Again, it's emerging technology, right? We will get there. But as of right now, I couldn't give you an answer to that question.
Okay, thanks.
Brian, you and I had talked about the possibility of getting you bringing a tech support or tech specialist in,
Yeah.
you're welcome to do that. You don't have to fill an hour if it's our September meeting. Although I have a pretty good feeling that a lot of the same questions will be asked again, and you would be welcome.
Well, not to hijack Gary's presentation, I'll turn it back over to him, but I would be more than happy to do that. And I will see what I can do for local support. So maybe for those of you that have more technical questions, there's somebody on the board that can help.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions about Amazon's Sidewalk? If not, Gary had something to say about Windows 11.
Oh, yes. Any more questions? Okay. So everybody knows the big thing with Windows 11, you have to have an 8th generation or higher Intel processor with the TPM and all that stuff to install it. Windows has graciously lowered the Intel processors to some 7th generation, and those are mainly going to be their machines that they're still selling brand new that run the 7th generation, the Microsoft Surface Studio and that kind of stuff. However,
how convenient.
yes, isn't it? However, if you get if you are part of the Windows development team, you can download the ISO and install that on a machine that does not meet all the requirements, supposedly.
Yay.
Caveat. There is a caveat. Windows has not made up their mind if they're going to disable Windows updates for those machines. So just because you can install Windows 11 on your machine does not necessarily mean you will be able to get all the updates.
All the updates.
Yeah.
And I heard that there's something else they're doing to it too, but they're not necessarily going to stop you from updating, but they're definitely not going to guarantee the security of it.
Yeah.
So you're gambling with your own security if you don't have that chip.
They're
Yeah,
highly
what about the
recommending
beta?
that you don't install it.
As TCPM or whatever it is. Yeah.
Now, I do have Windows 11 on this machine and I'm speaking on, which is a Surface Pro 5, and it does have a 7th gen Intel processor on it. Now, I did install the newest Windows 11. You cannot get it through Windows Update. It will be free and downloadable to the machines that meet the 8th generation processor and all the other requirements. It will be a free download through Windows Update starting October 5th of this year, unless, of course, it's Microsoft and they change their mind. But right now, it is scheduled for October 5th. You will be able to download it on the machines that are allowed to have it without using the backdooring of downloading the ISO and installing that way. I downloaded the ISO. I mounted it in the previous version of Windows 11 that I had on here. I mounted it and installed it, and it's running fine for now, knock on wood. So the bug that I had with the previous version of the antivirus turning itself off has seemed to have gone away, and this seems to be a little smoother. So you can join Windows development for free. You can just go into the, if you have Windows 10, you just go into the update, security and update, scroll down to the bottom and join the Windows Insider program. And if you want to download the newest beta version, you want to join the beta part. And once you sign up for that, then you can go to the Windows developer website, sign in, and download the ISO.
Gary, we have a couple of news items regarding, have you heard, regarding Windows 11. Again, the release date is, as you said, October 5th. New operating system will be available as a free download for existing Windows users, but won't be available for every compatible Windows device at once, just as you said, and won't have every major new feature promised just yet, according to a blog post released today. Glad he compiled this from various news sources. Now, regarding the compatibility with Windows 11, when the new operating system was announced in June, some thought Microsoft was being unnecessarily restrictive on its system requirements. Word came out on Friday that a wider variety of PC chips would be able to run Windows 11. In a blog post, Microsoft said Windows 11 still won't support AMD Zen 1 chips, but will accept 7th generation Core X and Xeon W chips. The Microsoft Surface Studio 2 all-in-one PC will also be compatible. An updated version of the PC Health Check app will point to specific computer parts that won't meet the latest requirements and provide information on how to achieve compliance.
Yeah, that's where I was talking about. You will not be able to get the automatic download if you do not pass that PC health check.
Okay.
You're going to have to do your downloads on your own.
That's right.
So it won't do it in the background for you. You got to go do it. That's probably what's going on.
Yep.
I gotcha. Yeah, because it's like I've got 2 machines already that are doing that. Yeah.
Anything else for Gary on Windows 11 or Amazon Sidewalk
Or Mesh.
or Mesh? Right. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, Gary. Great
You're welcome.
presentation. We appreciate it.
Mhm.
Please feel free to pitch in on any other comments that any of the things that I'm bringing out and bringing up. So here we go with the rest of the agenda. DMA picnic was this past Saturday. It was a hit. We had some. We went through the door prize names twice. And so everybody was able to bring home at least 2 presents if they wanted. And there were some good ones. A couple things I haven't even opened yet so to play with. The DMA Trustees deadline for Board of Trustees applications or nominations is tonight. Membership is required. And you needed to have been a member contiguously for the past year. We need to have some applicants. I'm going off the board, and we had a board position open as we went into this year. So we have really 4 positions open, 3 3-year positions and 1 2-year position. At the DMA picnic this past Saturday, I requested a participation of a volunteer to help us with a survey to find out what DMA members want. And not only would it be helpful for you to renew your membership so you can participate in the survey, but DMA would like to see you as a member, anybody who's not right now. So if anybody would like to be a volunteer, this is a one-time shot just to help create the survey. We'll talk to the board members about what kind of questions we want on the survey, put them into the survey, make sure that the questions, I used to be a journalist, so I know that the question is what's important. So we want to have the questions to be objective, if possible. Unlike a lot of the surveys that you receive in text and email right now. And I'm going to continue with Have You Heard? Did we have any comments or suggestions about any of that or anybody volunteering? You can text me if you would like to volunteer for any board to run for a board position, to be on the board, or to help with the survey. Chat me through Zoom or email me or talk to Gladdy. I'm sure Gladdy's there. Continuing with Have You Heard? Again, Gladdy helped compile this from various sources. Apple will soon be playing a new tune. Apple just announced its acquisition of Prime Phonic, a service that specializes in streaming classical music. Launched just 3 years ago, Prime Phonic is no longer accepting new customers and will shut down this service on September 7th. Partnering with Apple will allow them to reach the majority of global classical listeners. Their playlists will be integrated into Apple Music, and Apple expects to release a standalone classical music app in 2022. And the next one is about cybersecurity. Billions of dollars have been promised to bolster U.S. cybersecurity. Tech companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft met with Joe Biden on Wednesday because of recent major cyber attacks against U.S. government agencies and infrastructure. Apple announced it would work with its suppliers to drive mass adoption of multi-factor authentication, as well as possible new security training. Amazon plans to offer a multi-factor authentication device to all Amazon Web Services account holders for free, and to make all of the company's employee security awareness training available to the public at no cost. Apple said it would spend more than $10 billion over the next 5 years to strengthen U.S. cybersecurity. And it was Google who said that, and the software supply chain. Google also promised to train more than 100,000 Americans in data analytics and IT support through the company's career certificate program. Microsoft said that it would invest $20 billion in 5 years, making similar promises as Google. Any comments or questions about that?
I have a comment about Apple since you're talking. Because I was reading this on the internet that they're working on a new iPhone. Did you hear about that?
They're always working on a new iPhone.
Yeah, always. Yeah. probably 3 or 4 generations down the line at
This
least.
iPhone is very different because it is going to be, they're working on it now. So I don't know when it'll come out, but they're working on it where if you have a very spotty cell phone, service stuff, it'll pick up the low-hanging satellites, and you'll connect to satellite phone. Becomes a satellite phone. Now they didn't, I don't know how much that would cost, but it's a.
Well, I think you can take your cue from the cost of the iPhone, but because that's not cheap, as you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter.
Yeah.
Mike in the chat section said we should mention the APCUG future events if we have any.
During our meetings. Okay, I'll tell you what. While we get other things going, I'll finish what I have to talk and let me look up of those future events. See if we have anything that I can that I can talk about. Is anybody here either present at TJ Chumps or online from APCUG that could talk about that? Okay, guess not. I don't see anything. Okay, but let me continue on this, and then I'll look for APCUG.
I can look it up if you're doing that.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. All right, now I have something that I have to find here. Give me a minute. Calendar. We're going to go through and I had this up on the screen and I don't know what happened to it, but here it comes. DMA's calendar. Anybody have any other comments? I noticed that NASAC is on the calendar. I didn't see what the topic of the meeting was, but can anybody help me with that? Or would anybody like to talk about NASAC?
Well, I don't know what Jim has planned for the meeting yet, but we are a user group that meets on the second Thursday of every month at 6 o'clock at the downtown Xenia Library, the Greene County Library. If you walk in the door, after you walk through the glass area, we are, before you even walk through the metal detectors, there's a meeting room right there. And sometimes you get a preview if it just happens to share the same presentation. They do door prizes just like DMA does. We do have a membership. It's $20 a year. It tends to be more of a user group than a technical group like DMA. So we can, a lot of times we'll break it down a little bit more so people can have a more of a user type understanding of things. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, Catherine, would you like to speak about the Python self-study and the events that you promote, the other events?
Apparently, Catherine's gone.
Okay, all right. Well, let's continue here. We have Python self-study. Thank you for telling me that. Python self-study on Fridays, noon, and it's online on Fridays. The classic computers, Gary Ganger, did you have anything you'd like to talk about? Classic computers, September 4th, Saturday.
I was still back in the same, call me on the phone if you have any problems.
Good, thank you. By the way, we're looking for a place for a permanent location for the computer museum. Gary is our curator of our computer museum, and we'd like to be able to continue accepting more computers for our museum. Right now, we're at a space limitation. We also want a place to display those computers, not just store. So, and
say if we're gonna go for a location, we should look for one, I guess, maybe.
Well, first thing I'm going to do is ask if anybody knows of anything that might be appropriate, and then we'll pursue it. I like to use our present resources without having to extend right now. But yes, you're right. We ought to start looking. And if anybody wants to be involved in the search process for a computer location, please let us know. September 6th is Labor Day.
Piece of information. Steve Fry is trying to, has been for several years also. So if you find anything, let him in the loop.
What's he looking for?
Computer museum location, both for display and storage purposes.
Okay.
Steve Fry, you said, right, Gary?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the calendar is date and dynamic languages, and that's what I was going to have Catherine talk about too. She's involved in that. That is on a Wednesday, September 8th, 7 p.m. It is online. To repeat Gary's talk about NASAC, that would be September 9th, a Thursday, September 9th, 6 p.m. at the Xenia Library. Again, Python self-study, Friday, September 10th. Catherine's involved in that. Our DMA trustee meeting is September 13th. That is a Monday, September 13th. It is online. The reason why it's not the first Monday of the month is because Labor Day is. Is Martin there to talk about the investment SIG?
Yeah, the investment seg, Peter, is canceled for September. I'll be out of town.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Thank you for telling us about that. Anybody would like to speak about the Linux SIG?
Let's say that we'll be right state this month.
Say again, I don't know, Gary.
Let's say in right state this month in person.
You see a right state this month. Okay, it was hard to, I didn't get much of that. Can somebody else repeat that might have heard it better?
He's coming to the mic. So Alexa is going to be at Right State this month in person. And I assume we'll also have a Zoom portion of the meeting also, but people who will be meeting at Right State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got information from Mike Stock about the APCUG future events. The next quarterly virtual meeting will be in November 2021.
November 6th.
November 6th. Thank you for that. Number 6. Okay. All right. Now, next thing, DMA Trustees Investment Linux Python Self-Study Software Freedom Day is September 18th, Saturday, September 18th. Software Freedom Day is an annual worldwide celebration of free software. Free as in speech, not free as in beer. Okay. Yeah, Software Freedom Day is a public education effort with the aim of increasing awareness of free software and its virtues and encouraging its use. Free to use, free to modify, free to distribute. www.softwarefreedomday.org for those people who are interested in pursuing that. DMA Trustee Nominations, as I mentioned, today is the deadline for trustee nominations. We prefer people to volunteer themselves or be nominated by somebody. Gladdy or Ed are collecting the names. Now, I can especially mention this since Catherine is gone, but Catherine and I had been chatting back and forth about the possibility of her being interested as a trustee, as a DMA trustee. So anybody else interested, we'd welcome your participation. And if you just want to attend DMA board meetings, of course, you're welcome to do that too, to see how we run our meeting. You know, kind of a loose parliamentary procedure, but we get things done. This year we have 4 positions open, as I mentioned before. Candidates to be a trustee are 21 and a regular or associate member in good standing for at least 12 months prior to the September elections. No experience is necessary, and let me just say, it's a great way to gain experience. And
I have a question here because I don't know, how long am I a member of the board now for? Because I know I've been here at least 2 years.
since you were elected, it's a 3-year term.
Okay.
To be a member of the Board of Trustees. Now, if anybody would just like to try out the position and see what they think of it, we do have that 2-year position available. And we also have an option of the DMA board, of the present DMA board. Well, you could call it assigning. I would call it honoring a person with the position of a DMA board trustee position. Okay. So, so if you'd like to try it out, you have an interest in the 2-year position and met all the other requirements, the DMA board, I believe, can appoint you, honor you with that position.
Hey, Peter.
Yes, Gary.
I'll go ahead and throw my hat in the ring.
You the man. And thank you. I appreciate it. By the way, I want to thank you again for your help, considerable help at the picnic. Thank you very much. Saved my back from having to move around so much. So thank you, Gary. We have one, and I think we need to confirm with Catherine, and before we put her name in the ring too, or put her hat in the ring too. So anybody else?
Somebody that knows languages would be a good person to have in there. So that would.
I sent her a text and said, "Would you be interested?" So, or a chat, and said, "Would you be interested?" And she responded in a positive way, but I want to get a definite confirmation before we put her name on the ballot. Anybody else is interested? Of course, we would welcome you. And by the way, we've all joked about how much work it is. It's not a lot of work unless you're on a committee. And if you're on 4 committees, it's a lot of work. Okay. But you don't have to be on 4 committees. You can just be on no committees if you want. We just want you to be prepared for our meetings and be ready to contribute.
For some advice.
Yeah, advice. We use you as a level of brain trust at those meetings, at all the members and all the guests. Speaking of brain trust, does anybody have any problems that they would like to talk about? Any problems that they would like to talk about that our brain trust can address? I don't see any hands, either the electronic hands or hands in the pictures. Okay, so looks like there's no brain trust right now.
Mike posted something.
Say again, please.
Mike posted something in the chat.
Did he? I didn't see that.
I'll read it if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says Larry Breed died in May 2021, the father of APLA programming language, matrix operations. The Palo
Alto Museum's going to have a Zoom memorial on Sunday in September, but I don't remember. I think it's like the 21st. I don't know the date. I can't find it.
Okay.
But he was the guy who wrote APL for that IBM was using for the first things on their computers, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate
Palo Alto is a nice area. So interesting
yeah,
that they
Zoom memorial for him. So he was
nice.
I was reading about his stuff. He's been quite involved in a lot of things. He was out at Burning Man and doing stuff out there, and did some things with bicycle wheels for watering or something, all kinds of stuff, and some of the artwork stuff too that's out. But interesting quote he used to say was he was starting to remodel his house, but he was doing it all himself. So he had to. So as a beginner, he had to learn how to do everything, and probably did it the wrong first time.
Wow, that's a big place.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that information, Mike. If you have,
I didn't know they had a computer.
I'm sorry,
chat. It's probably the big one.
All right. Anybody else have any additions to our presentation before we get into our door prizes? Gladdy, you're on deck.
Kathleen has her hand raised.
I didn't see that. Sorry, Kathleen. How can we help you?
I just put it up. I just put my hand up. Gary caught it. I was wondering, seeing that Palo Alto has a computer museum, what kind of museums do other organizations have that we should be aware of as far as developing ours?
I used to live out in San Jose, California. And so I made quite a few visits to Palo Alto because I worked for an audiovisual company and we delivered stuff to the various companies in the Palo Alto area. in Silicon Valley, the first Silicon Valley. But although people in Boston might argue with that.
Make sure that you're here so you can maybe get a door prize.
The Palo Alto Computer Museum is a more has been supported by the various companies in Palo Alto, and I believe it's a nonprofit. I visited it. It's nice, you know, and it's but when I visited it was, oh geez, a bunch of years ago. So I'm sure it's far improved by now because of the influx of additional money from the computer organizations. I don't believe any user group, to my knowledge, no user groups have their own computer museum open to the public. Okay, they might have something in a friend's house or in a garage or in a storage unit, but I don't believe there's anything to the level of what Gary Ganger and I have talked about. So,
Peter,
yes,
the San Antonio computer group had one. They had a space that they got on a cheap lease from a mall area, and but eventually they had collected a whole bunch of computers and stuff and had it in their space there, but then they lost the space and had to get rid of all the stuff. So they
Well,
gave up
this,
their stuff.
you want to see something here? You want me to, can I share something?
sure, go ahead, Edwin.
So it's hard to keep it going, and there's only a couple around the country, I think. But
Oh, I can't share because I'm a participant.
Oh, let me. Oh, I'm sorry.
South Birmingham or something. I forget where it's at. Yeah, there's no.
I'm making you a co-host now, Edwin.
And let's see if I can do. Okay, good.
I didn't know what you were talking about, the electronic share, but
Yeah. Here we go. These are pictures of the Palo Alto Museum. See the one up here on the this is the building. I think that they've got well, it's not coming up, but we'll see if we can go back. Oh, there it was coming, but let's try it again. My internet connection says it's unstable, but that's a nice building.
it is.
Wow.
Yeah, this is not what I saw. So this is newer than what I saw.
Okay. But look at all this. I mean, it's like what I find interesting is here's this bicycle, looks like computerized bicycle thing here. This is huge. I mean, this is not just a small building. They got all these standing computers and, you know, all big Cray type machines and stuff. Look at this. This is funny. Oh my Lord. Look at all those old tapes.
Wow.
Wow.
I had to go to school to fix those machines.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'll bet.
Well, I appreciate you showing us that, Edwin. Thank you.
Not a problem. Let me
When I saw their
share here now.
Yeah.
Stop share. There we go.
When I saw their computer museum, they were in a warehouse, in a corner of a warehouse, and they were in the process of putting a fundraiser. This was 15, 20 years ago at least, and
Yeah.
they were in the process of putting a fundraising project together for their computer museum.
It must have worked.
Must have worked real well. Well, you know, I mean, that's where all the big money is for you know, Apple and everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
The basis of my computer museum was to show what had happened in the home industry, basically. Although I do show pictures of some of the things I worked on with the Air Force, and I have videos that I put on at TechFest to show the history of the background of what the computer has become, so that people can see it at the TechFest, some of those large machines without actually having them there.
Cool. And there's been a lot happening in the Dayton area regarding computers. I mean, I think we can approach this from a localized point of view too, beyond the personal computer. So
One of the videos I have, in fact, I was even looking at it this week, is Shafe's Computer Chronicles show that he did here in Dayton. Of course, he had Nexus Lexus, Computer Fest, and the Wright-Patterson Computer Center as part of those things that he showed, and NCR.
It was good for him to come out. It cost us a little bit of money, but I thought it was real good for us. So
that, and he made it two years in a row. So
yeah, he was here for our millennial presentation of what the local companies are doing. He was a moderator for a talk at Computer Fest, and what LexisNexis and the city of Dayton and others are doing in preparation for the January 1st, 2000. And then he followed up, I think it was the following year, he followed up with his story on Computer Chronicles about Computer Fest. And as you mentioned, Gary, LexisNexis and the Barn Gang and various Delco, they talked about Delco on there too.
yeah.
So, Kathleen, did you have any other questions?
I guess I just would like to know what your goals are for the museum. Do you want open to the public, and how much space are you looking for?
Well, right now, I don't have all the computers I used to have because I lost my space in my church and they tore down the building. So I had to turn it all over to Goodwill. That was about 50 machines. So I've got probably 200, 250 situated in my home, here behind me even. So I'm sitting in my computer room in a rented house because my wife can't use the stairwell at our home. And my daughter lives there and she's taking care of the rest of them. And Gladys has some in her bedroom and Steve has some, and they're just floating around.
Okay.
Well, to answer your question, Kathleen, I think it's if you've seen any of the computer museums that Gary has set up at TechFest and at other locations, it'll be an expansion of that, but a permanent display. He had some signage that describes some of the equipment. Again, that and expansion, if we have a permanent location, then we'll be able to do more and not have to downsize quite so much, you know.
Okay.
As far as space is concerned, 5,000 square feet would be great. You know, I think that'd be a good start.
I could do it. Yeah. Okay.
Speaking in round numbers, it doesn't have to be 5. We could probably get away with 3, but 5 is a nice round number.
We had a large section of Computer Fest that was dedicated to a lot of the people in the Dayton area that have small museums, and it'd be neat to have everybody together again. But we spent quite a bit of time over the years. The big problem is that, like at Computer Fest, it would take me a whole 3 days to set up, and then they told me I had to be out in 6 hours.
Yeah, I understand that.
And down at Tech Fest, I get 1 day to set up, 1 day, 2 days to show, and at the end of the 2 days, I got about 3 hours to get it all out of the St. Clair building and into the vehicle.
Yep. Typical show.
Typical. And to answer your question, yes, open to the public, I think would be able to.
A lot of people have asked, did I have a place they could set up? I said, well, yeah, you can always come out and look at it. But Steve Fry's been out to look at it, and he would love to have my library, which takes up the whole half of my basement of old magazines and catalogs and I've got a library of Sam's stuff because I have my TV business down there too, still set up.
So you need library space in addition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, library
Yeah.
storage and display.
Right.
And probably office space as well.
I have tons of software also, so we could probably, between a lot of us, come up with quite a bit of cataloged information.
Some of the machines I have are from DMA members that have donated them to the museum, and I've got them stored at the house.
Okay.
Behind me, I actually have boxes stacked on boxes that I take apart and put them in the car and then take them down to TechFest and set them on a table so people and the kids can actually look at them, pick them up, and see what it all was.
Well, I don't have as much as you do, but I've got still probably a good, 3 or 4 shelves worth of computers and software.
Yeah.
And I mean, 5 to 10, not just a shelf, but, a full bookshelf of stuff.
Well, so the 5,000 square feet that I mentioned really isn't a whole lot.
Right.
No.
Considering
And
office space,
with his-
toilets, storage space, and library.
And
display.
handicap accessible.
Right.
Right. And the very fact that there's so many brick and mortar businesses going down right now, this is perfect time to maybe get the city and, some other people involved in doing something like this, to just have something in a downtown area.
Yep.
Classroom space too.
We have Gladys just came up. She was on deck, and now she looks like she's ready to talk to us about door prizes. Thank you, Gladys. I hadn't forgotten you. We were just carrying on.
Hey, Gladys.
Update on the AppCode stuff too.
Gladys, before you do that, Eric Ottison's here with me. If you could throw a ticket in a bucket for him, that would be great.
Oh, he's too late.
Well, I've been here the whole time. He's been here the whole time.
Is
See?
Mark there?
Yeah.
Do I have a chance to win anything, or is Mark there?
Oh, Camden or Camden? I don't hear him speaking up, so you might be safe.
I might have a chance.
Ed, did you have something to say? Looks like you're at the TJ Chubb's computer.
Why this is not coming up big.
We can see you.
We can see you. When you start talking, it flips over, Ed.
Okay. Well, let's do it now.
Well, they had UpCug meeting, their quarterly meeting was pretty good. They had 3 presentations last time.
Just so you know, I have mine on gallery, and that might make it easier for you to see. Here's Gladys with her door prize.
256.
Let's drive from PNY, 256 gigabyte. And memorize these. We have an Echo Auto, or an Echo Dot, sorry. So that's appropriate for tonight. We have a Solo case. It's a 15.6 inch. Recycled from recycled bottles. It's actually a nice case. And we have a donation from Ed. It's a Kingston Ergo wired keyboard.
Ooh, that's nice.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So that's what we've got. Thumb drive, Echo Dot, case, and keyboard. Now I need somebody to. There we go.
Is that a USB keyboard?
Hopefully.
It looked like it was wired.
It said wired, this was.
One must be here.
Well, it could be the old PS2 or USB. And took what? Flash drive?
Looks like the memory's
I
gone.
saw it, yeah.
Does anybody have a microphone and a mic stand we can use at our TJ Chumps to improve the sound quality?
I have one, but I don't know if we can get up there. Who
Okay,
is
what's
it?
that ticket?
It's Eric,
Oh.
of all things.
What you want, Eric?
He said he'll take the Echo Dot.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
My brother had Echo Dots in 2 different rooms, and he couldn't get them to play the same music in the same station.
Really?
Trying to get the second one to program.
Kathleen, do you want a case for a laptop or do you want a keyboard?
Yes, case for the laptop,
Okay.
but you don't have to mail it.
It's light, so that's the good one. One more. This is for the keyboard.
While we're waiting for Gladys on the keyboard, she did a terrific job on putting that picnic together.
Yeah, she
You
did.
did. Thank you, Gladys. That was very nice.
Edwin.
Woo! Edwin, hey.
I get the keyboard.
Yeah. Keyboard, that'll save your hands from carpet.
I know. I just got the other one up and working today.
Yeah, of course. All right. Does anybody, we're just about 9 o'clock. Everybody thought the way we were rattling on that we might go long, but we didn't. Anybody else have any other comments, suggestions, additions? Gladys, did you have anything to say?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Yeah, Gladys, you don't need to send that to me either. We'll get together at the board meeting.
Now the board meeting is going to be hybrid. I'll be from the same location, my pillow right here, for the DMA board meeting. But anybody interested in attending our DMA board meeting online or in person, you're of course welcome to.
Person. Yeah, it'll be hybrid. We can do it online or we can do it both.
I'm going to try to be there because of the keyboard and the very fact that I had another meeting right before this. I was actually going to come up tonight, but I had a meeting that lasted until right at 7 o'clock. So
Where does it meet?
Fairborn Firehouse number 2. It's
What was it?
Fairborn Firehouse number 2.
why couldn't you get in last time, Gladys? Did you figure that out?
Oh yeah, whenever they make a run, everybody leaves.
Oh, so as long as they don't make a run, we can get in there.
Well, if we're in there first and then they make a run, then we could stay. But
Okay, gotcha.
so there's not a problem with that. It's just that if they make a run right before
We get there.
somewhere between 6 and 7 o'clock, if they make a run then we're locked out.
Hey,
Nice.
Kathleen, this is the firehouse that's off of Dayton Yellow Springs Road. The TJ Chumps that's right there on Dayton Yellow Springs. It's basically behind that on Commerce.
Oh, okay.
What directions? I'll send you directions.
Yeah. And what night is it? It's this coming Monday?
No, it's,
Monday after next because of
Labor
right.
Day.
That's
being
Labor Day.
Memorial Day.
Right, okay.
Also click in the data bus, just before the minutes. Yeah, there's a little section explaining when and where the board meetings were held. And somewhere in there, there's a sentence, the Fairborn Fire Station number 2, click here for a map. And just click on here and a Google map will come up.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Martin.
Gladys, you don't have to send the doc to me. I'll pick it up at the next general meeting.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else with any additions or comments? Brain trust problems? Anything?
Remember, the fair at New Boston is this coming weekend at George Rogers Clark Park on Saturday and Sunday.
And what is this?
This is a reenactment, living history type event portraying about 1790 to 1810. And it's, gosh, been going on like 38, 39 years now. And it has all kinds of artisans and trades and merchants and 3 taverns and a coffee house and food. It's cut back a little bit because of COVID. Probably a good idea to bring a mask, and but we're still gonna try to do it. We couldn't do it last year, but we're trying again this year.
We get to see you dressed in character.
Yeah.
Where is this again? What's the location?
It's George Rogers Clark Park.
Okay.
And it's on Route 4, just west of Springfield.
Okay.
The date and time again, please, Kathleen.
On this coming Saturday and Sunday. And it's open, what is it, 10 till 6, both days.
Cool.
Really
I don't know what the admission cost is now, but you can buy tickets online if you want to. Go fairatnewboston.org. There should be information there, or you can get tickets at the gate.
Yeah, I think the tickets run about $5 or $6 for adult. And it is really a very interesting display and use of the facility for that period of time, for not just the clothing and whatnot, but also a lot of the people that are exhibiting their crafts that they're reenacting from that period of time, stuff that's available for, as far as things from that period of time, handmade by a lot of these folks. And there's a lot of good food there.
And battles and battle reenactments.
Oh, yeah. They've got reenactment of battles with period artillery and musketry being used.
Cool.
Yep.
Cannon firing, so watch your ears.
Yeah. There's Indian Village, and Indians are there too. And so
yeah, the native village is extremely well done. Probably one of the best in the country, I think. And it's off to the side, so you really have to look for it.
The site itself is where the Battle of Piquet was fought.
Yep, the farthest Revolutionary War battle, farthest west Revolutionary War battle.
Really?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
Well, at least this far north, yeah.
Yeah. Any other additions, comments, suggestions?
the EPCA August was their regional virtual meeting, and it was pretty good too, Peter. They had, I sat there, had 2 tracks, and I sat on the one on electric cars, all about the Teslas, which is the safest car on the road, apparently.
According to Tesla.
A genealogy presentation, which gave some good resources and stuff too. So, forgotten the first one anyway. But
Well,
that's
they always are helpful. Now, and if you register with them through chat, with APCUG through chat, they'll send you emails and information and answers to questions by the speakers, questions that could not be answered during the presentation. So it's well worth it. It's well worth it, and I'm sure that we'll get some more information out. Their next meeting is November, I think November 6th. Is that, did I hear that correctly? Yeah, I see Gary Coy nodding. So it's well worth it. Now that meeting is their annual meeting, so it's not so much presentations like what they usually do. It's more like how to make the organization better, but it's still worth attending, and it's free. So you just have to register no less than a day ahead. So, well, unless there's any other comments or suggestions, I'll call our August 31st DMA general meeting adjourned.